What's up, y'all? It's Dre,
And I'm your co-host, Kales.
and this is Vibes from the South,
episode
8. We're going to get into it. We got a special guest for y'all. We got something different and something, I don't want to call it different. I feel like this is what we need. This is what the people need. For sure, what I've been needing for my whole life. But, I'm here now. Before we get into the episode, I wanna introduce this man. A great man since I met him. Honest man, and I just want to get into it. I want to introduce him so we can get this episode started. So, Pastor Tony is the founder of and lead pastor of Face to Face Worship Center in Clinton, Maryland, which was established in 2015. With over 30 years of ministry experience, Pastor Tony is a board-certified Christian counselor with a National Associate of Christian Counselors and certified relationships counselor with HTA. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Pastoral Leadership of Grace Baptist College, an associate's degree in Christian education from Annan Bible College. He is pursuing his master's and doctor's degree in Christian leadership from the Christian Bible Institution and Seminary. Pastor Tony is also a published author. In 2020, he released his sophomore book, Silence of a Lad, Why Men Stop Talking, which, by the way, is still purchasable, and I purchased, and it's a great book.
Make sure y'all get that.
Make sure. Which explores the power of the male voice and need for men to become part of their community. Pastor Tony is also, this is one of the biggest things, a DC native.
Definitely.
He's a father of 2, and he's a granddad. So without further ado, let's give it up for Pastor Tony. Let's give it up for Mr. Pastor Anthony Page. I apologize about that.
That's all right, Kel.
How you doing,
Welcome.
Thank you,
This is
thank
our
you.
second special guest too, y'all.
Definitely.
Second special guest, man.
I
Welcome.
appreciate being here, gentlemen. And y'all can call me Tony.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So call me Tony. And again, Cal's and DeAndre, it is an honor to be with you guys. Your second guest. So that's a high privilege.
Definitely.
That's a high privilege. And look forward to the conversation, man.
For sure.
Look forward to it.
For sure. We're going to get right into it. Our first question that we're going to ask is, what does being a pastor mean to them on a daily basis? So, like, what's being a pastor to you? What did that look like? What did the walk look like? The talk and everything, the experience and everything that you've dealt with being a pastor for your experience.
Yeah. So first, I want to preference that. That's a big question, because depending on the individual that you're talking to, pastoring can look like different things to different individuals. I will say, first of all, and I'm a big wordsmith. I'm big on making sure that the information I share is from my worldview, which is a biblical worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at pastor, that word pastor in Greek is shepherd. Okay. And basically the role of a pastor, first of all, it's not a job. It's a calling. Okay.
Okay.
You have many hirelings. And what I mean when I say hirelings, you have men and women who go into pastoring as a job to make money, as a job for notoriety, as a job for popularity. And when I look at pastoring is a calling that comes from God. Okay, it doesn't make me any special or any less than anyone else. But I will tell anybody, you cannot do this if you're not called to it. Okay, and I say that because pastoring is really a leading and a calling to lead people.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how people are because we are people.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
We can change on you in a dime,
Right.
depending on circumstance, situations, what we got going on.
What we
can
don't
like
have.
what we don't have, what we do have. We can
Yeah.
like you
What we
today.
want.
What we want. We can
Definitely.
like you today,
Mm-hmm.
and we can stop liking you today. Okay. And so when you understand pastoring, we're called to shepherd, to care for people.
Okay.
And in caring for people, we're leading them, we're guiding them. Look at a shepherd's job, period. A shepherd's responsibility was to take the sheep and to lead them to greener pastures. The challenge, however, when you understand the nature of a sheep is not an animal that necessarily will do what they're instructed to do without some prodding, some pushing, some cajoling. And so it's the same with pastoring. You know, you're dealing with people who have their own mind, their own desires, and trying to work with them to help them to understand that they were created for a purpose.
Okay.
And then helping to find that purpose and then to fulfill it.
That makes sense.
Does that help?
Definitely.
I definitely do.
Definitely.
Okay. My next question is, what sparked your call into ministry?
So first of all, I will tell you, and anyone that you know that's called to any true ministry call, okay, didn't call themselves, didn't select it or identify for themselves. Pastoring was not something I wanted to do. My aspirations was to be an attorney. Okay, had no desire. I used to say this when I was first called to the ministry, because I was called to the ministry to evangelize, to share the good news of Jesus Christ to people. And I remember saying often, I don't like people enough to pastor them. Okay,
That's real.
I'm just
That's
being
honest.
honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
I'm
honest.
just being honest.
Right.
I'm an A personality, and so I like things in order. I'm very structured, and dealing with people, you got to lose that. And so, in my aspirations to be an attorney, that kind of went left because I had enrolled, and just kind of giving you all some context real quick. I had enrolled to go to Morehouse. I was accepted at Morehouse, so I was going to Morehouse.
Okay.
And God began to deal with me about going to Bible college. That was not my idea. That was not my desire. And what happened, everything began to fall through with Morehouse. I mean, if all of my plans just began to fall to naught, right? Long story short, ultimately, I accepted, and I was probably, I want to say I was 19, 20 years old. I accepted the call, said, okay, I'm going to go this route. I moved to a state I had never been to. Didn't know anyone there, but I knew about the school because I had gone to a conference where the information for the school was. And in prayer, the Spirit of God told me to look at the material that I pulled from the conference. When I looked at the material, there was the pamphlet for the college, the Bible college. I enrolled, got accepted, and I was in Indianapolis, Indiana the next year.
Okay.
And so that started my journey to being called into the pastorate. And here we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any pivoting moments or struggles along the way?
How much time
When
do we
the-
have?
Hey, we got about an hour and a half.
So first of all, I would say probably the biggest success for me as a pastor is to see people come into their true identity. When people really recognize and identify who they're called to be, that is one of the greatest feelings. It's almost like probably what a mother or a father feels when that child comes out of the womb of that mother. And there that child is introduced to the world, and they're given a name.
Tapping into your purpose.
Absolutely. Because when you're given a name, your name identifies you. Well, that's the beauty of pastoring. When people come into the this is why I'm here. This is what I'm called to do. Because what I've learned, when people come into the identity of or the purpose for which they're placed on this earth, they become teachable. But when you keep fighting and you keep trying to be Johnny down the street, Mary Sue on the corner, there's a constant fight. But when people come to the awareness of their purpose, there's a submission and there's a teachableness that comes about. And that's like monumental for me. But on that same spectrum, the challenge of pastoring is dealing with the people who you feel like you're constantly fighting with. It's almost like they see you as an enemy and you're trying to become a partner.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Definitely understand that.
You're trying to coordinate and to collaborate and
Right.
to connect. And they see you as an enemy. They see you as their foe.
Right.
And so there's that constant friction. And with pastoring, there has to be a determination that despite the treatment, I'm going to do what I'm called to do in this person's life.
Right. Because a lot of people don't see that they're in a fight with themselves.
Absolutely. And Kels, you hit the
That's big,
and that's
yeah.
actually where it starts.
Right.
And so one of the keys with pastoring and even counseling, when an individual is fighting themselves, sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let them fight until somebody gets knocked out. And then you come to the rescue. And sometimes that's difficult
Yeah. It is.
because sometimes you want to go in and you want to referee. Sometimes you want to go in and you want to break it up and you want to, hit this way or no. Sometimes as a pastor, you have to be still and let the people go through what they need to go through. Not rescue them.
But still let them know that you're there.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of presence, because that's another challenge and responsibility of being a pastor, being present, being available, and sometimes that's a dance, because how can you be available for people all the time and still be available for yourself?
I was going to ask.
Yeah. Be available for your family.
I've been dealing with that
Yeah.
myself for a long
Yeah.
time.
And can I be honest and transparent
Of
with
course.
you all? There is no such thing as balance. That's that is an ideal world. But what you have to do is you have to learn to prioritize.
Okay.
That is the magical word. How do you prioritize your life? And sometimes that requires no. Sometimes that requires not making yourself available.
I
Right?
agree.
Right.
Because if I'm burnt out, how can I help you? What do they say to us on the airplane about the seatbelt? They tell us to buckle ourselves in first, right?
Before
They
you
tell it right. They tell us to grab our mask first,
Yep.
because I can't help you if I'm dying.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good example right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So during this time, what were some most rewarding and challenging aspects of like ministry?
Of course, when I look, so I've been pastoring, it'll be 10 years, April the 26th. And I would say one of the most rewarding memories or rewarding things that I can remember is when we opened the church, because we started at the YMCA in Maryland, right?
Okay.
And starting the ministry, seeing your vision come to fruition, again, like a child, like a baby, seeing what you had been dreaming about and you had been praying about, and what you believe God gave you come to fruition. That was one of the greatest feelings ever. Okay. To see people come and become the feet and the hands of your vision, to see people take your vision as their own. Because one of the things about ministry, away with pastors trying to do everything. That's why many pastors die early deaths, because they're doing everything, and pastors aren't called to do everything. Away with that mindset of pastor is massa.
Right.
Away with that. the culture now is about team ministry. We do ministry as a team. I may be the visionary, but without hands and feet,
Can't nothing move.
can't nothing move, right? And so that was probably the most one of the most celebrated times in my life. But on the flip side of that, when the pandemic occurred, church as we knew it shifted. And so it's almost like we had to learn how to do church all over
All over. And a new way.
in a new way because people were different.
Yep.
Culture was different. The dynamic of traditional church was different. And that's still a bit challenging, you know, to try to shift and in shifting, maintain momentum. Here's the challenge. I used to drive a stick, okay? And you can't shift and maintain the same momentum. You got to slow down,
Okay.
especially if you're going around a curve, right? Okay, because if not, you're subject to flip over. So we're in this season now where we're shifting, and the momentum has slowed down. But I can't get focused on the momentum. I got to maintain the wheel so I can get to where I'm going. I got to maintain the gear. I got to maintain where I am in the shift. Because always remember, again, I had a stick. With a shift to get to the next speed or to the next gear, I had to shift, right? So I can't get where we're going if I don't know how to shift. So I can't get depressed because the momentum has slowed up.
That's true.
It's just preparing me to go faster, right? Does that make sense? That makes
Definitely.
Perfect sense. You sort of answered this, but maybe you want to go into more details and more in depth into this. But how do you balance your personal life with the responsibilities of the congregation?
Everyday challenge. You know, again. So there's some things that I have put in place for my sanity. A lot of pastors do this, but Mondays are my days off. So if someone calls me from the church, I don't answer. If someone shoots me an email, I don't respond most of the time. You know, so and communicating those boundaries.
For sure.
Because I think another thing in any relationship, if you don't communicate your boundaries, people won't know what they can and cannot do, right? And so I've communicated those boundaries. The administrative team, the leaders at Face to Face, they understand what those boundaries are, and so they recommunicate it. They make sure that the people know, you know, these are the boundaries. I love to travel, so every opportunity I can get, I'm traveling. You know, I'm an information junkie. So a lot of my travels is going to conferences because I believe in learning and growing and getting better. And so one of my, unfortunately, I call it this, but one of my escapisms is in a room where I'm learning new stuff. I'm in an environment where I'm not familiar with the people there. I'm not familiar with everything. And so I'm there learning, because what it does, it expands me. And if it expands me, I then know I have the opportunity to expand those connected to me. You know, so again, setting boundaries, traveling. I'm a family guy. I love my family. I'm divorced, but you know, I have a full life. I was married for 19 years. Out of that marriage came two wonderful daughters. They're both grown and adults. My oldest, she has my grandkids.
Okay.
So hanging out with them, they're all in Indianapolis.
Twins. How is
Twins.
that?
That's a whole nother story. Jackson and Jameson.
Okay.
You know, but getting to Indianapolis, hanging with them, and again seeing legacy. I enjoy doing that. I'm also a movie buff, so another form of escapism. I'll go to a movie. I'm real. Again, I'm an A personality, but I'm also very cerebral. So it's nothing for me to go into a movie and just kind of, I get lost in the messaging of the movies.
Yeah.
But those are some of my escapisms. But those are some of the things that help me stay in tune with Tony, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because you never want to lose yourself,
Can't.
especially within what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with other people and you have to, serve. Because I feel like whatever you do, you're serving.
Absolutely. That's the heart. That should be our heart, in all
Yeah,
honesty.
I agree.
And not just in church. That should be our heart across the
Across the
globe.
board.
We have been created to serve others. And it's in serving others that we become our best selves.
Yeah.
When you only serve your own agenda, your lifespan is shortened.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you focus only on serving you actually cap your ability to grow
Yep.
because you stop receiving new information.
Cutting off your own hand.
As they say, cut off your nose to spite your face.
Right.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
Before I go into my question, you mentioned you like to travel, so I
Yes,
wanted to ask, what's your favorite place you've been to far?
So far, and I was here 2 years ago, and then 3 years ago. So South Africa and Dubai.
Mm.
I mean, memorable. First of all, South Africa, and just to see the affluence of our people. And just I was amazed at their affluence. I was amazed at the community. I also saw, which I think we Easterners we take for granted. I saw a culture of hard work. I mean, these people. So I was there on a 10-day crusade. So it was church focused, missions focused, but we had a few days that we just toured and kind of got familiar with the various places.
Right.
And so for 5 days, we were at a different church every night. This one mega church, they had about 4,000 members. But the thing that amazed me, the people who belonged to that church walked 7-8 hours to get to church.
Walked
7 to 8 hours to get to church, and we complain about a 30-minute drive.
Man.
Yeah, this is once a week.
Wow.
Absolutely. And so just to see that hunger, and now mind you, and then they had to walk back.
Right.
So what I noticed though, because there was that hunger, there was that culture of work, their services lasted 4 or 5 hours. Because the mindset was, if I'm going to walk 7 to 8 hours, I'm going to show enough come and worship.
Right.
This is going to be real. I'm not just coming to get a 3 songs and a good word.
Right.
I'm coming to have an experience. And so that was amazing. Again, seeing the affluence. I mean, we're talking about millionaires. I'm talking about the cars that they were driving, the houses. This one pastor who had the large church, we went to his house. He was in a mansion. And if you don't know South Africa and you don't understand that region, because that's also a very wealthy region, I was amazed, floored. So that was monumental. And then Dubai was one of the cleanest cities I've ever been in. And then their architecture was amazing. I'm also part of a travel group.
Okay.
Right. And so we take trips every year. And so one of the years was Dubai, and we were there for 7 days. Just amazing. I mean, the people, beautiful people, but it was just amazing. And I'll tell anybody, if you've never traveled outside of your region, you are doing yourself a disservice.
Hey, you talking directly to me,
Man.
You talking to me? I need to travel.
You are doing yourself a disservice because when you only know what you have been introduced to right in front of you, you limit yourself.
And you sometimes forget about what you need to appreciate more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah.
I definitely. That's why I always 2 things. I appreciate golf, and I always would keep it around. I've been playing since I was 6.
Oh, wow.
And that's the sport and the thing that got me to travel. That's what got me my first passport.
Oh, that's sweet.
I went to Bahamas, been to St. Lucia,
Yeah.
St. Lucia, plenty places,
Nice.
Barbados, just
Yes.
playing golf.
Oh, wow.
When I got older, put them golf sticks down and I started traveling.
That's
But
good.
it's definitely it's worth an experience. It was worth an experience then. But traveling now and as an adult is way better.
Man.
You know, especially because I get to go to places that I seen on the map as a school. I'm like, okay, Peru and all these, you know, different places. And I have a friend that went to Thailand.
Yes.
And
That's one of our
lived
trips.
he lived down there now.
Yeah, that's one of our
So
future
it's
trips.
like it's amazing and it's out there. And what people don't know is these places like Thailand, like Peru, like Africa, even Dubai to a certain extent. You got to have a little bit of money going
do.
out there,
Yeah.
but a lot of these places, the U.S. dollar, like in Thailand,
Yeah.
I think it's $90 to every U.S.
Yeah.
dollar.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, you know, it's a better opportunity.
Yep.
It's just the culture and what you got to get used to, but it's nothing down here that's not down there.
And the other thing that's interesting, oftentimes in these countries, they see Americans as celebrities.
Right.
They
They
do.
do.
So the treatment of us, I mean, has been from my experience was tremendous. You know,
Yeah.
and so I even encourage you, Kels, put your plan together, man. You know, I say this to my girls all the time: put a plan together and work your plan. And if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. So identify the first place you want to go, and then put a plan together. Give yourself a timeline, and make it happen.
Definitely will.
He got that passport now, so
You got a passport?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
that's
I
the
got
first
my
thing.
passport
That's
now.
the first
Yeah.
thing. Congratulations.
It's been a long time. but I got it now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's jump into the role of a pastor in modern society.
Yeah.
So how do you see the role of pastors evolving in today's world?
That's so good. That's so good. And so there's a couple points I want to make because in our current culture and in our current world, the old paradigm of pastoring has changed. So what was the old paradigm of pastoring? That you had one leader, and that one leader was the be all, the do all, and it was it. That was the focus. And that pastor typically did all that he did or she did in a church building. Okay. Well, as you all know, that's changed. You know, with the pandemic, you know, everything has gone online. You have paraministries, you have ministries that are doing what they do, and they're doing it behind a camera. Okay. So that's one of the major changes that in pastoring, we have to accept the shift. We have to accept our message hasn't changed, but our methods must.
Not to cut you off.
Yes, sir.
But would you
No.
feel like some of the scenes in church start to look more like similar to like club scenes in a way? Like I've been seeing that lately, and that's one of the things I wanted to touch on and ask you. Like, it's not all churches, but sometimes I kind of feel like there's not a separation sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that I want the club to feel like the church or the church to feel like the club, but sometimes in certain churches that I see, it's like I feel like I'm in a club.
Yep.
Like I want more of like the word.
Yep.
I want
Yep.
more of like an understanding. I might have went through something yesterday that I wanted to come here and just to understand that it's going to be okay tomorrow, and then I can come back the next Sunday and I can relate more. Not just making the songs the primary message. Let's go back to the words of let those be the messages. So I just wanted your viewpoints on that.
And that is so good. Now, and I'm gonna share with you, and I will tell you, in all transparency, I'm not one of those pastors. I don't believe in dim lights. I don't believe in fog lights and all of that. Not saying anything's wrong with it.
Right.
Okay. But what we're trying to do, unfortunately, is to create an atmosphere with lights, cameras, and fog lights and all these things. And the atmosphere should actually be created with his spirit. Okay. The Bible says he that winneth souls is wise. Right. And so wisdom doesn't mean that I have to become you to relate to you. Let's look at Jesus. Okay. When Jesus met the woman at the well, okay, and he began to tell her story, and how she had a appetite for different men. Did he try to relate to her by sleeping with her? Absolutely not. But notice what he did do. He met her where she was.
Yeah.
He that winneth souls is wise. We have to learn to meet people where they are, but attract them with our difference, not our sameness.
Right.
Our pastor said the same word.
Attract them with our
That's true.
difference, not our sameness.
Yeah, that's true.
And but therein is the challenge, because you have people now that are more focused on numbers than souls.
So, yep, that's true.
Numbers and views.
Numbers and views, because that's the world we live in,
Right.
right? We rate success by numbers and viewers.
Right.
But the word of God says, if you the least of them, okay, shall be great. The least. The first shall be last. The last shall be. Don't get me to start preaching, y'all.
Oh no,
I
please do.
understand, because
Please do.
that even touches on when we first started. We always
Yes.
talked about like our messages that we want to send. We don't care about the view numbers. We
Yep.
don't care about, you know what I'm saying, this only certain audience watching us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our message every episode is to just have some type of it's still possible to the youth, or
Yeah,
it's gonna
I
be
love it.
okay,
Yeah.
or you're not the only person in this world that's gonna go through this. I've been through this too, and this is how I overcame it. Whether if it's just one person or 1,000 people.
Definitely.
That is so
we
good.
coming with the same energy and the same
Got
vibes
you.
from the South
Got
that we
you.
do every single episode.
Every single day.
Good.
Every single day.
And so, and let me share with you all an encouragement, and I'm so glad to hear that, because it's not. So let's be honest. It's not that you are not aware of numbers, but the numbers don't drive you.
Right.
So here's my message to you, gentlemen: focus on impact and not impressing.
Okay.
Someone commented
deep.
that too. They said our audience is going to find us.
Absolutely, because see, understand. When you find your purpose, your village will find you. The people that you're called to. Why? Because once I find my purpose, I find my identity, and I begin to feed my identity, and I become authentically who I've been called to be. And when you are authentic, you become like a magnet, and people are drawn to your authenticity, not your performance, not your cloning, but who you really are.
As a person.
So know your message. Understand your message is connected to your purpose. And understand your purpose will reach your audience, because they're hungry for it. They're looking for you. You ain't got to look for them. Now, the challenge is, how long will it take for them to find you? That shouldn't be our concern. What should your concern be? Be consistent, be persistent, and be committed. And watch. They'll find you. Does that make sense, guys?
No, that definitely makes
does.
sense.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that answered my second question, because I was going to ask you, and not to be
you're
off
good.
topic, but I was going to ask you, how can, I mean, even you can answer this for, because it relates to the question that Kels had asked you about the pastors.
Yep.
That's what they're doing.
Yep.
And I was wanted to ask, how can pastors, or even us, navigate with the worldly things that's taking over right now? Because it's more worldly things than godly things that's taking over, and people don't know or people don't know or can't divvy out the two. So how can we navigate through that, knowing that people want the worldly things and not really worrying about the godly things?
And so the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So make your thirst for God. How do you do that? You develop a prayer life. You develop a study life. You make sure that you're connected to a community of believers that are feeding you spiritually. Okay? Because the world and all that we're seeing, the objective is to pull you away from the community of God and ultimately from God. See, we don't realize we actually gain strength in community.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the
That's true.
gym. And when you're trying to lift heavy weight, do you need a spotter?
Definitely do.
It's the same in the body of Christ. That's why the church is there. We are called to build one another up. We should be the safe place for one another.
I agree. I agree with
Definitely.
And so, you know, and always check your check those who are in your circle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always.
Are they pushing you into the face of God, or are they trying to pull you out of his face? And based on what you want most, you will adhere to one or the other. Because if the Bible says it like this, how can two walk together unless they agree? Can't.
That's true.
Definitely.
Yeah, can't.
True. I will say that 1 hour with God definitely helped me. So I appreciate you for posting it that day.
Amen.
Because I use it. And,
Yeah.
and I have my journal and everything.
Yeah.
So what you said about that studying,
Yeah.
that's definitely true. Because just months ago, just 1 month ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you, anything. Like, remember, before we even started
Yeah.
this recording, I was telling you about Peter,
Yeah.
about
Yep.
Job,
Yep.
about, the different Paul, like the different things. I wouldn't even be able to tell you about
Yeah.
that. Like, just different things,
I
just
love
knowing
it.
verses and everything. So I appreciate you for just posting that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate God for allowing you to
Amen.
post that.
Amen.
And me to be able to see that at that time, because that was something needed.
Yeah.
And that brought me a lot closer.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Amen.
Definitely. I think for me, it took for me to lose everything to understand my purpose more. So when I graduated in 2019 and I got my degree, that was like one of the hardest times in my life. I talked about this in a previous episode.
Okay.
But just waking up and getting those denial letters from
Yeah.
every single job. I probably had like about 200
Wow.
denial letters. Like,
Wow.
because that's how much of a drive I have. Like I was fortunate enough to have like internships with like the
Mhm.
United States Capitol, like DC Superior Court, things like that. So when it was time to get to the career, I thought that experience right there was just going to automatically get me in the door. But, it's always a battle with post-grad life.
Yeah.
Not even just for me. It's been
Yeah.
for everybody,
Yeah.
you know? So it's just like being in that time period. And then it's like I was still living with my moms at the
Yeah.
time. And I have
Yeah.
a little sister. And so I'm like the big cuz of the family. You know what I'm saying? I'm like the first one to go to graduate college, the first one to go Greek. I'm
That's
doing
what's
a podcast. I got
Uh-huh.
like the big personality of my
Uh-huh.
family, you know?
Uh-huh.
So when I'm not that, I feel I be in my head a lot. And I was just thinking and then I grew up with a single mother.
Okay.
So that's even more of a drive of wanting to be something in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just like those denial letters, it just was taking me like, man, I went to college for 5 years. That's why, because I do stand up now too. That's why in
Oh,
my
wow. All
in my
right.
stand up, I talk about post grad life
Okay.
because I said it in a funnier way. But here, right now, in that moment, it was really a hard time period for me. You know what
Shout
I'm
out
saying?
to
So it
Sally
just was
Mae.
right. I talk about dealing with like Sally Mae. That's the person that you got to pay back.
Yeah,
your student
yeah, yeah,
loans,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So just dealing with that was like a real hard time for me because it was like I did all this time in college
Yeah.
and I gotta keep getting denial letters or going to jobs where they want to pay me in commission. I don't want to work commission. Sales ain't my thing.
Yeah.
No, shout out to anybody that's good at sales. I
Facts.
don't got nothing against y'all, but for me personally, I'm a businessman, and I know that's a part of being in business.
Yeah.
But that ain't the business
That
I want to
ain't-
be
yeah, I got
in.
you.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like that was just a hard time because I was just in my head. I was like, man, my little sister growing up. What type of example am I setting for her? Or like, why am I not getting any of these job applications? But one thing I didn't do dealing with all of that was quit, because I knew that quitting was never. It was
was an
never
option.
me. It was
Yeah.
never me. For one, like I can go through the mud and the dirt for a year. I'm just never going to quit because I know it's going to take one day when all that's going to change. If I get up every day and I'm applying to 20 jobs a day, one of them 20 is going to hit. It's just like cooking up a parlay. Not to talk about
Yeah.
betting, but I just betted a couple days ago. So it's just like it's kind of like cooking up a parlay. Like if you're going to apply I get up every morning and I'm applying to these 20 jobs, whether if it's on USA Jobs, LinkedIn, Indeed Jobs. If I keep getting in that method every day, something's going to, like you said, it's going to shift and I'm going to go into a different direction. And it took a long time because it was like 2019, majority of 2020. Then it got to like towards the end of 2020, early 2021, I got my first job working at the front desk at the Art.
Okay.
So from there, I was just able to, okay, so I got my foot in the door. I was always good. So I went to a law-based school.
Okay.
So I went to Thurgood Marshall Academy. So here at Thurgood, we do this thing called portfolio, where at the end of every year, you do a presentation of how your year went. Oh, wow. So that might include presenting projects, talking about your GPA. When you become a senior, talking about the college that you want to go to, things like that. So when it comes to interviewing, that's my strong side because I've been doing that so much. Yeah. So going to an interview was never an option. So even when I was going through that time, we getting denied, I used to always tell myself, all I need is the interview. I know I'm gonna kill the interview. Wow. I just need somebody just to believe in me a little teeny bit and not pay me in commission. Right. You know, and I would be there Monday morning. You know what I'm saying? So just like that taught me where I needed to be more tapped into my purpose.
Good.
Going into now, I know that even though I got the job that I wanted to get, that's not the only work that I need to be doing. Yeah. I need to continue being a leader, doing things like podcasts here with Dre, trying to talk to others, because there's been people that have been through the situations that we all been through. Like I said before, a lot of times people got pride issues. So like they choose to be in their pride than be in their purpose. That's why I be so transparent with my friends. Now I turned 30 this year, so I be so transparent with my friends because it's like, I know you thinking about it, but you just don't want to talk about it. But I come as a real friend. You can talk to me about anything, right or wrong. I'm gonna tell you right or wrong. Like, hey, dog, you wrong. You know. But I'm also tell you like, are you all doing the right thing? So it's just like we got to be more. I'm more tapped into my purpose, being who I need to be, and I have a strong value in being a leader.
That's good.
That's just my number one thing. Yeah. Like, I don't care about being like the flies, the richest, the most popular. That doesn't matter. That just happened to be around me. But when it come to when you bring up my name, it should be a leader behind it. And I'm not just like a leader where I feel like I'm the only leader. Now I lead in the pack. I got a good village behind me. It's just like who I allow in my village, it's only based on me. I'm not seeking nobody validation or no popularity. So that's just how I overcame that in 2019. That's good. I just wanted to tell you.
And that's good. And I will share this because we live in a culture and a society now that really propagates leadership, and that's a wonderful thing. But I think one of the things that's so important to remember about leadership: a good leader is first a good servant. And I'll submit to you, Cows, even some of the challenges that you've experienced was just developing your character to lead. Okay, you can't lead me anywhere if you've never been anywhere.
That's understandable.
And so, in those no's, you were learning to keep moving, and even in your entry level position, you were learning to serve. Okay, because again, the world that we live in promotes this leadership from this lens of you have everything in control and you call in all the shots.
You make it look good.
You making things happen, but nobody shows the backside of the leader. That they learn to lead first by serving. The Bible teaches if you're going to be great among us, you got to first be a servant. We learn through Jesus. He came to serve. Look at him when he washed the disciples' feet. And we're not talking about washing the feet that we're accustomed to at our all-night church service where you take a bath first.
Right.
So when I wash your feet, I'm washing clean feet. No, these were dirty, dusty feet. And so understand all that you've gone through is making you, I like to call it, it's your suit that's being stitched so you can fulfill your purpose. That's what's happening. Yeah.
So we're going to jump into the advice for aspiring leaders and believers. So what advice would you give to someone considering ministry or church leadership?
So the first thing I would say, ask God to lead and guide you into your purpose. Why were you created? And I think this is important because when you really understand your why, see, many of us either have operated or are still operating, and we don't know our why. And your why is the impetus behind you doing what you do. When you understand your why, you can deal with rejection. When you understand your why, you can manage delay. Doesn't mean it feels good. Doesn't mean you won't get frustrated. But when you understand your why, again, going back to purpose, going back to identity, that becomes your gas to keep you moving. And so when I talk to people about ministry, and I talk to people who have aspirations to be leaders in whatever venue, why do you want it? And see, and this is the underbelly. Most people don't really know why they want it.
But because it look good.
Because it looks good. And I'm gonna tell you what happens when you don't really know why you want it. You're attracted to it because it looks good, it sounds good, smells good. But let challenge come. Let hard times come.
You don't know what to do.
Or you ready to give up?
You're ready to give up. You're ready to throw in the towel. But when you understand, I have been placed on this earth to make impact on people, to help people find their identity, to help people understand that they can do it. They can fulfill their dream. They're gifted. They're talented. When you understand your why, that becomes your driver. So I share with potential leaders, aspiring leaders, first, find out your why. Okay, number one. And you find out your why by talking to your creator. See, I can't talk to you about my why because you only see me, what I've shown you. But my creator knows everything. Right. There's nothing hidden from him. So I talk to him, get my why, right? Okay. And then I get in a community that helps sharpen my character. Because see, that's another challenge we have. We have character deficiency. Okay. We look good on paper. We're good performers. We'll close the door, turn out the lights. We're not what we perform. So it's important to be in a community, in a village, who are going to sharpen your character, who are going to call you out on your stuff, who are going to let you know, man, that was foul.
Constructive criticism.
It's important. And constructive criticism hurts. If anybody told you constructive criticism feels good, they didn't tell you the truth.
Nah, it's supposed to hurt.
Absolutely.
It's supposed to build you up. If you ask me.
Because it's constructive.
Builds up your impact.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So, what are some tips that you would give for people who are looking to strengthen their faith or grow spiritually?
And again, this all falls in line with everything that I was sharing. But again, I think it's important to make sure that you're in the right community. I'm a big proponent. Church is important. And from the perspective of the fellowship of one another. Okay. We are called to build one another up. The strong, the Bible tells me, bears the infirmities of the weak. Right? I was just talking to someone earlier coming in, and they're going through some difficult times. And oftentimes in difficult times, it leads you to isolation. Right? Not realizing, and sometimes isolation is needed. Get yourself together, pull yourself up. But if you stay in isolation too long, you can move into depression. And so one of the advices that I gave this individual was, don't stay in isolation too long. Because see, if I stay in isolation, all I'm going to hear is my own thoughts. And I'm told in Proverbs that iron sharpens iron. Okay? We're created to encourage each other. So get in a community that's going to build you, that's going to push you, that's going to challenge you, and that's going to keep you on task. right? So and community from a Christian perspective is church, is small groups. At our church we have men's groups, we have women's groups, we have youth groups, because oftentimes in those environments, because we are like or similar, there's safety. The Bible says there's safety in the multitude of counsel. So those are some of the important tools that I would encourage people to make sure that you tap into. Yeah.
Definitely. So we're going to take a switch in the topic. We're going to go into sports and entertainment. So we talked about the last episode. I really didn't want the Eagles to win, because as a Commanders fan, well, first let me ask you.
I'm not a Commanders fan.
What team do you like?
So, and this has gotten me a lot of pushback, but see, I'm a diehard Dallas fan.
Oh.
They haven't done well for a minute, but
I deal with this on a regular.
Just be honest.
Man.
Yeah,
He's a Dallas fan. Our
yeah,
cameraman
yeah,
Jeff's a Dallas fan.
yeah.
Oh
So-
my.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Anyway, so
but I must give kudos to the Commanders, though.
For sure.
They my brother's a big Commanders fan, and they did well.
They did very well, yeah.
I was proud to be a true, because I'm a Washingtonian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a native Washingtonian, born at Walter Reed Hospital. So I was proud that they did accomplish what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, definitely.
but the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
They did.
All right. So now, what I was saying last episode was that I didn't want the Eagles to win, because with them winning this year and in 2018, the trash talk that they have now is crazy. Because
Crazy.
a lot of people that's in our age range, they can say things like, "Oh yeah, we live to see our Super Bowls." Commanders fan, we only see it on the NFL replay,
right,
or on YouTube or something like that. So just like, I'm not a hater. Much congratulations to y'all, and y'all who are Eagles fan. I told y'all congratulations,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
know for a fact, next season the Commanders, we're on the way. It's not going to be a cakewalk anymore, even with Dallas.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
not.
going to
I
be a
agree.
cakewalk
I agree.
anymore, because you got things like the draft, and you see what's going on with free agency. I mentioned Debo Samuel
I'm about to say,
last,
see Debo.
last episode. I
Yeah.
mentioned Debo Samuel
And Metcalf.
and Metcalf.
Yeah.
We got Debo first, but if we didn't get Debo, we was going to get
Yeah,
Metcalf.
I was gonna get Metcalf.
But we got Debo because he got ties into our GM and our front office and things like that. But we on the way.
Yeah, that's definitely
We
another
are
team that's
on
on the way.
The
So
way.
I'm just going to encourage you all. Just know the worth of prayer.
definitely. So, let's talk about the NBA.
Yes, sir.
So, the NBA players are approaching. My team I'm Washingtonian, so I like the Wizards. We're doing horrible right now, but if you've been watching the Wizards, then you understand that we're going in a great direction. What people really don't understand is that our front office is the same front office that the Oklahoma City Thunder had.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been watching, you know the history of the Thunder were not always good.
Mm-hmm.
But their front office got them the right amount of draft picks, the right supporting cast, and that's exactly what we got right now. When we just made a trade at the deadline, we got an extra first round in next year's draft, and I think another one in like another draft, I think. But because we already got three first rounders,
Mm-hmm.
we got another second round. We're building this young core into something. And if people are paying attention, you know we about to be good, because we about to get a new stadium too. So if you think they about to build us a new stadium and our team not going into no direction, you don't understand business.
Dallas fans thought the same thing, right?
Man, look.
And they had the nerve to let us host the Super Bowl.
So what's your perspective on LeBron?
I have no disrespect for LeBron.
Okay.
Would
you equate him as one of the greatest players at this point in time?
Yes. And the one thing that I think people don't pay attention is that LeBron's probably the only player that can say he's been to a decade of NBA finals.
Mm.
If you really think about it, he's
Never
been to
thought about
a decade of NBA finals. Yeah. Two things. Mentally, that's strong. That's hard to keep yourself in that mindset of, I got to go back next year. Every player in the NBA says they want to go to the finals next year. Yeah. But to actually do it 10 times for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a feat. I would agree with that.
And then also just like, no matter what his age is, we can still see that he can do pretty much whatever he wants to do on the floor.
Yeah.
Now, is it the same impact? No, because he's older. But his chemistry is still there. It's just like Floyd Mayweather.
I feel like it's better.
Like Floyd could still box at that old age because he still had the IQ.
Yeah.
LeBron still got that IQ, and he still has that impact because a lot of the people that in the league, they grew up watching him.
But now I'm gonna take you way back though. So if you were to compare him with Michael Jordan, is there a comparison?
I wouldn't say it is. I feel like it's not because it's two different times. You know, you got two different times, two different types of play, two types of rules that was doing, like, you know, things that they was doing now they couldn't for surely do back then. So I just feel as though Michael was, you know, good, the greatest player at that time. LeBron, you know, Kobe had his time, and now it's LeBron, and LeBron is still holding that torch until someone, you know, come up and take it from him. I feel like, you know, it's a couple NBA, you know, people that's coming up, couple NBA stars that's coming up that I like, that I can see that can potentially have it, like Shea, even Anthony Edwards. That can be those two. I feel like those can be the closest to it, but you know, LeBron is LeBron, so it's going to be hard to beat a lot of stuff that, you know, or even do or get close to a lot of stuff that he's done.
Yeah, and I guess because I'm of an older generation. I mean, I just look at Michael Jordan, and to me, he was one of the greatest players. I mean, and I just look at even the style of basketball was different.
Right.
Then. Yeah. I mean, the way the game was played, you know, to me, it was an art. To me, back, the game was an art, and he was at the top of the league.
Right.
You know, but again, I'm W All's age, so
I think it comes down to what you're comparing them to, because it's like when it comes to impact, from what I've seen with Jordan, it's like when you're coming to Michael Jordan's team, you know he's going to be in your ear every single night about how much you need to do better while also trying to make himself better. And with that came that many championships, because it wasn't like, you know, Jordan had Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He had people like with decent names as opposed to Bron had like Bosh and Wade.
Yeah.
So I think when you compare, it depends on what you're looking for in the comparison. Like their impacts are in a way the same, but with Jordan, he has like his mindset, and like you said, back in that time period too, that winning mindset was a little bit different than when LeBron started forming, like, well, he didn't form, but he started adapting to the whole big three thing. You know, when it used to be like the Paul Pierce and the Rondo, or the Paul Pierce, Rondo, and KG, or however you want to say it, KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. But with LeBron, it's like he had to do a little bit more recruiting with him. You know, so it's just like not more so he's telling that guy like, yeah, I want you to come here, we're gonna do. But he understood what other teams had, so he tried to find like a meeting point to where, like, when he went to Miami, he already knew what Wade could do over there. You know what I'm saying? So he just was like, when he went over there, he like, all right, I'm LeBron James, you Dwayne Wade, we can really win this. So let me go over here. I'm gonna go to where you at because you're a little bit older than me. I think, Wade came in the league before. So him going over there, it's like, what am I going to do to make Miami better? You know, clearly I can't do it in Cleveland. Well, at that time, he couldn't do it at Cleveland. But what am I going to do? With Jordan, it's like, I can stay in Chicago up until I'm damn near 36. Get them motherfuckers to come skewing language, but get them to
you
come over.
get
them to come over to me because I'm the dog here. You know what I'm saying? So it just was like that. It all depends with the Jordan and LeBron comparisons. It all depends on what you're comparing them to.
So let me ask you this question. So looking at the sport now and looking at the sport then, do you think it was more teamwork with Michael Jordan than it is now?
I do.
Because to me, that's one of the distinctions. It was real teamwork. To me now, you have prima donnas.
Yeah.
And those prima donnas are the magnets, you know. And I think for me, because there's prima donnas, sometimes a LeBron frustrates me because he whines, because he's a prima donna. But that's just my opinion.
I understand. He
Nah,
he
it's
has his
yours.
moments. He has
You
his
know,
but
moments.
yeah,
It's age too at the same time.
What you mean his age?
Cause he probably tired of getting those same fouls that he was.
It's always
getting
been like
for-
that, brother. I think it was worse when he was young.
It was.
Yeah.
But-
I think he cooled out now because he realizing like, oh, I'm getting old. I can't
Right,
keep doing
right.
the
And my
same
son
thing.
here.
Mellowing out. Yeah,
Mm,
definitely. Yeah.
So, lastly, what we want to touch on is the recent boxing fight, Lamont Roach versus Gervonta Davis.
Mhm.
So, did you get a chance to see the fight?
I did not because I'm not a big boxing.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Yeah.
So, how the fight went? If we could just tell
Okay.
you, Gervonta Davis, he's from Baltimore.
Mhm.
Lamont Roach is from here in DC. So, it was the whole DC versus Baltimore thing.
Uh-huh.
So, a lot of people had, they're both champions.
Mm-hmm.
In this fight, Gervonta is the champion in that weight class, and Lamont is a champion in another weight class.
Okay.
So a lot of people had
Bigger or smaller?
I think it's smaller.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think he in a lower weight class.
Lower. Okay.
So a lot of people had Tank because they say like Tank doesn't fight anybody, and people were mislooking at the simple fact that his opponent Lamont Roach was also a champion as well. You mentioned earlier how iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people wasn't looking at that fight like that. They were looking at it one-sided, like, oh, this is Gervonta Davis. He has a 94% knockout rate, which is respectable. But when you're going against another champion, what make you think that he's not thinking he can't do to you what you think you're going to do to him?
Yeah.
Especially being a champion. As a challenger, you think about, when you don't got a belt, you thinking like, look, I got to take him off the throne.
Yep.
But you ain't taking me
Champion
off my
against
throne.
champion.
It's champion against champion.
Yeah.
So the result of the fight, it went 12 rounds and it became a draw. So Gervonta Davis is undefeated. Lamont Roach has one loss.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this whole debate about, during like the 9th round, I believe, Gervonta Davis had like braids in his hair. He said he got his hair done 2 days before the fight. And during the fight, while he was sweating, some hair grease got in his eye. So while the hair grease got in his eye, he took a knee because his eye was burning and he couldn't see.
Okay.
So he went over to his corner and they wiped him with a towel and he got back in the fight. So what the referee was saying, he started counting because when you take a knee, that's considered a knockdown.
Right.
But he stopped because when Gervonta said, no, I couldn't see on my eye, I had grease in my eye. The debate about it now is, had they would have counted that as a knockdown, Gervonta Davis would have lost and he would have got his first loss. So now in their contract, they have a rematch clause. So they're looking to run it back pretty soon. So I was telling people, I said, number one, it was going to go 12 rounds, and it did.
Oh, okay.
So
You forecasted that, huh? You predicted it.
I knew that I was like 80-20.
Okay.
Because I was like, somebody, because they're both looking to be the aggressor in the fight, somebody got to go down. Now, it was some good punches being landed, and Tank did stumble a lot. He landed good punches on Lamont Roach as well, made Lamont, they were both going tit for tat. But that knockdown is like really the debate and the talk of the town because he took a knee and they didn't count it. But by rule in the boxing rules, it says that it's a knockdown. So now it's just like this big debate and they're just eager to just run it back. So that's just the crazy debate that they're talking about right now. I actually, prior to on my way here, I was watching his reaction video, like the boxer Lamont Roach. He was reacting and watching the fight of him fighting Gervonta Davis. So he was going more in depth about each round. So he talked about, he was like, by rule, if he take a knee, that's a knockdown. So I would have won. So that's just how that fight went. And I know the people watching this, who saw the fight, they understand what was going on.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that rematch is going to be crazy, man.
Yeah,
That's going to be a good rematch,
yeah,
man.
I'm suspect that it will be. It
Definitely.
will be hype because of
I'll take
him
it.
taking a knee.
Before we get into the next thing, what is it? The final words, I believe. I wanna ask you to touch a little bit on about Silence of the Lad and why men stop talking.
Okay. So Silence of the Lad, again, was written when I grew up with my father and mother in the home. You have a lot of families, particularly in our culture, that don't grow up with both parents in the home. But I grew up with both parents in the home. However, I grew up with a silent father.
Okay.
And so I learned silence through demonstration, but I didn't know I was silent. And what I mean when I say silent, I didn't know how to use my words. I didn't know that my words had impact. I grew up in a home where my father would often say to us, my sister, my brother, and myself, kids are to be seen and not heard. So there was the subliminal message that your words didn't have any power, right? And so I grew up this silent young man, this silent teenager, so forth and so on. And then when I got married, didn't realize I was silent. You know, when my then wife would ask, "What's wrong?" Nothing. How you feel? Huh? What do you mean how I feel? Again, not realizing that those were demonstrations of silence. And it took me, to be transparently honest, it took me probably 15 to 16 years to write this book, because what I realized, one of the downfalls for my marriage was I was a silent partner. I was even silent with my daughters. Silent in that there was no words of affirmation, because I didn't grow up in a home with words of affirmation.
Right.
You know, yeah, my mom did, but my father, you know, I never heard from my father, "I love you." And as I was, and I used to journal when I was younger. And as I was journaling, I was writing this stuff. And I remember when I was married when my father died. And I remember bawling like a baby when my father died. And my then wife was saying, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because I'll never hear those words, 'I love you,' from him." You know, and long story short, so fast forward. So the book was really written to help men first identify their silence. In identifying their silence, find out the reason why they're silent. Then find out the impact of their silence and how to correct it. But I also deal with the book how women often provoke our silence.
That's true.
Again, and I give examples in the book. I remember being married and wanting to share this one pivotal incident in my life while I was married, and I went to share with my wife what I was feeling. And these were her response. This was her response. "Oh, you're just drumming. Stop beating the drums." And guess what that caused me to do?
Break your silence.
No,
Oh,
shut up even the more. I rationalized in my mind that day, I will never tell her how I feel. Because one of the dangers and one of the reasons why men are silent, because we are afraid of being judged as weak.
that's very true.
So we don't show vulnerability.
That's true.
A lot of our anger is because of our silence. We don't know how to say it with our mouth, so we say it with our fists.
And we keep it built up.
We don't know how to say it with our mouth, so we say it with our genital.
That's true.
And so in my book, it is really to help men to understand, to identify, are you a silent male? And I come from, again, my worldview is the word of God. Adam, in Genesis chapter 3, we find out that when the serpent approached Eve and invited her to eat of the forbidden fruit, the Bible says she then turns to her husband and gives him the fruit, which is an indication that he was standing right there next to her. And so I pose the question, why was Adam silent? Does silence predate us, or was silence taught to us? And my hypothesis is it's both.
I was about to say it's both.
It's both. So that's just a kind of overview of what we deal with in the book.
So here, like we mentioned earlier, you're our second special guest. So usually when we do the episode when it's just me and Dre, we give like a quote and we talk about like, what the quote means to us, try to share to the people. So this is like the motivation. So we want to ask you to just give a little bit of motivation. Like we mentioned earlier, our audience is from the youth to the people that's our age to even the adults to the elderly, you name it. We just want to bring out a message every single episode that we have. Good. So if you could just give the people a little bit of motivation, doesn't matter what the topic is, just let them know, anything is possible. You can get over anything in life.
Absolutely. And so I would like to share with your audience, with you gentlemen, don't stop dreaming. Again, the importance of having a dream, to me, it's like blood in your veins. It's the motivator. It's the reason for being. It's the impetus behind us continuing to keep moving. And understand, however, with a dream will come nightmares.
With impact comes wins and losses.
Absolutely. But this is the beauty of a dream. In a dream, there may be a nightmare, but you're going to wake up. And so that is to say to your audience, that is to say to you gentlemen, don't quit. No matter how difficult it gets, no matter how despairing, no matter how many no's you get. My mantra for life, and I share this with your audience, I can do all things through Christ that strengtheneth me. The text doesn't say I can do some things. The text says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So understand, you have some strength that you haven't tapped into yet. And tap into it by getting a relationship with Jesus Christ. And you can fulfill your dreams.
Definitely appreciate that.
Because when you do, because just in the Bible as well, because once you get to that point, what is it, Isaiah 49? Where it says, your wings will soar like eagles.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Okay. I know a little something. So
a little something.
Definitely. So that's, that's part of it. And that's something that, helped me through my situations. That we was talking about a little bit about it. So definitely, like I what you say is straightforward, 100% true, because I'm a testimony of it. I'm somebody that's walking in it and that's getting out. Good. They say you're either going through or coming in or going in. Is it going through or coming out, or so coming in or coming out?
Either coming in, going out, or getting ready to go.
Getting ready. Yep. So I'm on the verge of like coming out of everything, and I'm starting to understand a lot of things more. Yeah. So that's something that really I held on and that carried me through my process. So everything that you said, I definitely just wanted to back it up and to show the people and tell the people that, it's not just, what you're saying in your word. This is something yes, you're saying your word, but this is somebody actually who's going through it. Yeah. And actually, because a lot of my viewers, they know me and they know us. So they know that oh, he's not lying. Yeah. So it's, definitely.
And I want to say this last caveat. The Bible says, in all things give thanks, for this is the will of God concerning you in Christ Jesus. And what that text is actually talking about is perspective. How do you view things? I did a message last Sunday on head wars and coming out of 2 Samuel, where I'm dealing with David and Goliath, and Goliath taunted them for 40 days to the point that they were so fearful that they didn't want to fight him. And here comes old little David saying, where's this uncircumcised Philistine? Because see, he wasn't there for the 40 days that they were being taunted.
Yep.
Okay, he came at the tail end, but he didn't hear all that negativity. And we got to be mindful of what are the messages we're telling ourselves. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So always be aware, what are you telling yourself? If you tell yourself you can't, you won't. Keep telling yourself you can do it. You can do it. What is the constant message that's on repeat in your head? And you'll know what the message is because your life is going to follow the message that's in your head.
Definitely.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to close out, man.
Definitely.
For real, we appreciate it 100%. Like we said, you are our second special guest. This is Faith. What we call it? Faith in Action. That's how we're gonna call the title of the episode. Faith in Action. A conversation with Pastor Tony. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the word. We appreciate all the topics that we discussed here today. This is episode 8. I'm your co-host Kales,
And I'm Dre.
and this is
Vibes from the South.
We catch y'all at the next one.
Good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, that was good, man.
And no, that was good. That was a great episode.
Definitely.
I appreciate it, guys. And I just want to speak